Cool.
Welcome to Dodgers Dawgs. I'm Casey Porter. I'm so glad that you decided to tune in. Joined as I am each and every week by Austin Brubaker. And Austin, boy, between the walk-off last night, the great action in the system, boy, it was frustrating for the Great Lakes Loons. By the way, your Loons were the only team in the system to lose last night, and they took the lead into the ninth inning with a very reliable reliever, a guy who has just been absolute nails lately. Benoni Robles couldn't keep that lead. Other than that, organizational sweep. Kike Hernandez is coming back home. Amedrosario, he's going to be a Dodger. Out is Noah-Syndergaard. Out is Nickrobertson. Out is Justinhagenman. Whew, lots to talk about tonight.
A lot to talk about. A lot is going on within the Dodgers system, up and down the Dodgers system. Obviously headlined by the couple of trades they've made within the past couple of days. It is that time of year. The clock is going down towards August 1st, which is the trade deadline. Obviously, we had the exciting win for the Dodgers yesterday. Tough loss for the Loons. Totally uncharacteristic as far as the loss is. But you go ahead and move on right now. They're currently winning 4-2 as we are live right now. So a lot is going on within the Dodgers system. A lot of exciting things are going on. And so there's a lot to talk about here on Dodgers Dawgs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it was an exciting game last night. But I got a bone to pick, and I'm pulling this up right now as we speak. Let me get to it. The lineup today for the Dodgers. Okay, and I get the left-right thing, you know, and the data. And you're a data guy. You like to analyze data. But when you look at the lineup today for the Dodgers, and man, I always struggle to get the box score up on this. This Major League Baseball site is almost more complicated than I can handle. Okay, looking at the lineup today, you have Chris Taylor, who's 213, Max Muncy, 197. You have Miguel Rojas, 221, Austin Barnes, 110, and then Kike Hernandez, who's 226. So first of all, Kike doesn't need to be replacing as far as, you know, one of the guys that have good averages. He needs to be in addition to. We've talked about with Max Muncy. You can have one or two of those guys that don't have high averages, but you can't put 5 or 6 of them in the lineup like they did today, right?
Yeah, no, that makes things a little bit more complicated. That just further decreases your odds because then you're relying on a low probability chance that they're going to hit for some power, which does happen. A lot of these guys are on the team because they hit for power. However, with that there's a little bit more time in between when they hit for power. So if you don't have a lot of guys with high average, instead you rely more on the slugging, it might be a little bit of a delay. And so today I think you saw some of the ramifications of that. Just a lot of guys who have been a little bit inconsistent this year. And today they were off. And I think that was pretty apparent in the loss today.
Well, I mean, if you have 5 guys in your lineup that are hitting 230 or below, and I know, hey, batting average isn't the end all, but I like data analysis, Austin. I really do like the peripherals. I like the fringe numbers. I like the WRC pluses. I love the OPSs. I use them all the time. Okay, but I still also really value batting average. I mean, you know, I know some people will say a walk is similar to a hit. I would disagree with that. A base hit is always better than a walk for the simple fact, well, not always, because sometimes a walk will grind a pitch count, and that actually helps a team get into a bullpen. But by and large, a base hit is going to be more productive because it can drive in runs better. Does that make sense? So, hey, batting average still matters. And when you have 5 guys in your lineup that have a 230 or average or below, what do you expect? I mean, and the Dodgers, man, they're in first place, but they don't have margin they can't play big picture type managing. They can't put big picture lineups out there. They hadn't won this series it's not like they had beaten Toronto both games, you know, and were playing for that, maybe the sweep for the third game. None of that was happening. So I don't know I'm getting that out of the way so we can get to the rest of our show. I'm still frustrated from that.
Oh yeah, no, and it can be incredibly frustrating because there is still value in batting average. I know that is something that we've, as a baseball community, kind of moved away away from in favor of some more OPS type statistics, some more advanced type statistics. But there is still value in a batting average. There's still value in getting hits for your team. And when you have a lineup that is full of a bunch of players who don't have that ability to the extent of what you expect, to the extent of what you need, you're going to run into some days where you have offensive inconsistency like we saw today.
Well, if you have a lineup like today, you're going to have more bad days than good, right? I mean, just looking at the odds, I mean, in baseball is all about playing odds, right? Mm-hmm. So, hey, we already have our first comment, and, hey, I've talked about the Dodgers. I think the last 2 days, have highlighted the fact that the Dodgers, and I've been saying this for a month now, the Dodgers have to go get a guy that's at the top of the rotation. Right now, they don't have an ace. I'm sorry, but Juliourias, he is not an ace right now. Tonygonsolin is not an ace. Clayton Kershaw, you have no clue what kind of health he's going to come back with. So, in my opinion, the Dodgers right now don't have an ace. Pick that apart. Austin, you there? I think we lost Austin. I may have to reconnect with him just for a second. Let me go ahead and kill that. Let me start a new meeting, and then this will take just a second. So sorry about this, folks, but we must have lost internet connection. This will take just a minute. So I am setting up the meeting right now. Hang with me just for a minute and keep leaving comments. I will get to them here in just a second. I apologize. Sometimes, hey, it's probably my internet. I'm actually getting fiber here within the next week. I'm still on a little bit of a slower internet out here where I live. So give me just a second, and we'll get Austin back on. And let me send this right here. He gets these real fast. So there's that, and he will be back on here in just a second. Okay, so we were talking about the lineup today. Let me read some of these comments so far. Good evening, Shiva. Hi to yourself as well. Great trade today. Trey says, thank God Noah is gone. Yeah, no doubt. Here's Austin right here. So, hey, I don't know what happened. That's the second time we've disconnected. It's probably my internet. I was telling everybody that I'm getting fiber here within the next week. I'm super excited about it. I'm still on a little bit of slow internet out here out in the middle of nowhere. That's why the live shows are always difficult for me. But, hey, we'll roll with it how it goes. So back into the lineup. We've moved past that. We're now talking about the trade today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Amedrosario and some of his numbers. Let me get to him. Amedrosario, he's been in the major league since 2017. He has a 273 lifetime average, OPS 708. 1 year of playoff experience. He has 7 games in the playoffs, 241 average, OPS of 658 in the playoffs. Fielding percentage, 964. Nothing jumps off the page about this guy, except for, and this is why the Dodgers, in my opinion, 100% the reason why they got him. He is 303 versus lefties. You found your bat against left-handers that you've been looking for. That's my opinion of why they pulled this trigger.
Yeah, and that is exactly why they pulled the trigger. You talk about his batting average against lefties, and this isn't just a one-time deal. This isn't just a one-season deal. If you look at his career splits, he's hitting in his career 302 against left-handed pitching. He has an OPS of 816, which equates to an OPS plus. Remember, with OPS plus, 100 is league average. Anything above 100 is good. He has an OPS plus against lefties in his career of 130, meaning he's 30% better against lefties. So that is the reason why the Dodgers ID'd him, why they wanted to acquire him. They're looking for some more help against left-handed pitching. He can provide that. He also has the ability to play short, albeit if you look at some defensive metrics, some advanced defensive metrics, he is not a great defender at shortstop. If you look at outs above average, particularly, consistently has been below average defensively. But he can be a guy who comes off the bench. He can be a guy who can hit against left-handed pitching. He can fill in roles with exactly what you're going to need. And you were able to, with this, get a guy you don't have to keep long-term. He'll be a free agent at the end of the season. and you got to trade Noah Syndergaard for him. And that is something that the Dodgers likely weren't going to utilize Noah Syndergaard.
They were going to DFA him.
They were going to DFA him. And so having this transaction, getting a guy who's productive against left-handed pitching, it's got to be seen as a positive for the Dodgers.
See, this is why, in my opinion, you use the trade market instead of the free agency. The Dodgers pinpointed a very, very, very specific need, and that is a bat against left-handed pitching. And, you know, whether it be an infielder, outfielder, whatever, to hit against left-handed pitching, right? And so, and then they also were able to do it in a contract that's not limiting, that allows them to continue to have roster flexibility after the season is over. So I love, you know, the Dodgers front office, they're the masters at these kinds of moves, of just being very pinpointed, knowing the exact kind of contract to get, the exact need this player needs to fill. They're great at this.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're able and great at acquiring talent that they can help better. Yes. And they can help just elevate their game or find something new about their game. We've seen that over the course of the years. We've seen that with a guy like a Ryan Brazier. We've seen that with a guy like a Jason Hayward this year. Guys that the Dodgers can take and help grow, tweak something perhaps, and just elevate their game. And I think that is something that they potentially have ID'd with a guy like Amedrosario, with a guy like Kike Hernandez, who can really they can utilize some sort of aspect of their game, maybe help tweak some stuff and get ready for the postseason.
So does this mean Miguel Vargas is done for the year, Major League wise?
I think unless there is some sort of significant injury, he probably will be spending most of, if not the entire rest of the season in Oklahoma City.
Well, I can't see them pulling him up for the playoff roster if he doesn't have at least a month of at bats going into that playoff scenario. So I would have to put, hey, never say never, but I would probably put the percentages at well over 90% that this is it for Miguel Vargas. I think he had his runway for the year. Hey, let's rack him up. Let's make some adjustments. Let's hit this AAA pitching. Let's get in the offseason. Let's give it a shot next year is the way that they're looking as far as he goes.
I think that's exactly right. And I think with these moves, it allows you to give him that time to just kind of reset.
It's okay.
Yeah, and this is without having guys take over his role long term. Both of these guys will be free agents. That role will still be available for Miguel Vargas to earn in the future. Just this season, they are looking for guys who have a little bit more of a proven track record. They have a tough competition ahead of them if they want to win the World Series. Miguel Vargas has been inconsistent this year, so they pinpointed a need, and they're using some other guys to address that need. Yeah,
they ran out of time with him as far as this year goes. I mean, they didn't have any more time to experiment with trying to figure out to get his bat going. But, hey, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, Austin. This is actually a move that shows that they still think Miguel Vargas will be their everyday second baseman in the future, because they signed a guy that won't be in the way of that. I think you hit the nail on the head right there.
And I think that goes with the exact same thing with Gavin Lux too, with Amedrosario. He'll be a free agent at the end of the season. So I think with that, you're also going to have a guy who won't be here long term, so that role will still be available for him as well going into next season. So these positions that we going into the season kind of expected these guys to fill, they haven't been able to fill, whether that's due to injury, whether that has been due to a lack of performance. They were able to get guys to fill those roles that they believe give them a better chance going into the playoffs.
Yep. Craig says Angels are not trading Ohtani. I think they've won like 7 out of 8 since the last time we've talked. That's unfortunate because they're only like 2 or 3 games back for the wild card. We talked about that too. How do you convince your fans that if you're only 2 or 3 games back from a wild card and you're selling Shohei Ohtani, how do you convince your fans that you're even serious about having an organization at that point? So it looks like Ohtani will not be on the market.
I don't believe, and that's what the word out there is too. And I think some of the hardcore kind of baseball fans would be like, why aren't you getting something for Ohtani? But the reality is they're in the picture. They have a very real chance to make the playoffs. And if you have Shohei Ohtani on your team for the playoffs, who knows how far you can go. Now,
He could win game 1 by himself.
He very well could. And this is a little bit of bad news and good news, I would say, for the Dodgers. Bad news in the sense that you're not going to be able to get a Shohei Ohtani, but good news in the sense that nobody else will be getting Shohei Ohtani except for the Angels, in which case you won't have to face a Shohei Ohtani unless the Angels make it to the World Series, unless you make it to the World Series with the Angels. So a little bit of good news slash bad news in that. You just have to move on and look to see who else you can acquire from here, because Shohei Ohtani is not an option anymore.
All right, we have another great comment. We have a great crowd going on right now, and we appreciate everybody joining along here. Dodgers need to cash in on the prospects, get Cease, Giolito, Middleton, solves a lot of problems right there. Hey, I've said it. Like I said before, Urias is not pitching like an ace right now. Neither is Tony Gonsolin. You don't know what's going to happen with Kershaw. The Dodgers need a number 1 pitcher right now. Overpay for him. Overpay for him. Whatever you have to do to get the guy you think that can plug in at the top, overpay for him. Now, not ridiculously, but hey, overpay. That's my stance right now. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. You're not wrong. The Dodgers need help, and they need a guy who is going to start right at the top for the playoffs. And right now, they don't have a guy that they can feel super comfortable with. They're kind of expecting that offense to boom in order for them to win the playoffs. What happens if you have a game like today? You're not going to win that game. You're not going to win a playoff series if you have inconsistencies like today and you don't have a top line starter to rely on for the playoffs. So I think you have to look for a number 1 type starter. And I think Dylan Cease is one of those guys who could very well be a top of the line starter, not just for this year, but for years to come. And also with that, you mentioned, I believe, Kenyon Middleton, who's a really good, really good, effective reliever for the White Sox, who gets a lot of swings and misses, would be a really intriguing addition, as well as a Dylan Cease. So I could definitely see those 2 guys being targets for the Dodgers over the course of the next couple days.
I said it on my show this morning. I think Michael Grove, even if he gets squeezed out of the rotation, I don't think he goes back to AAA. I think he's earned the right to be that middle relief guy that could be a piggyback starter. You see that a lot with the Great Lakes Loons, where if the starter only goes 3 that day, hey, maybe they have an innings countdown with Bobby Miller, so they piggyback maybe a Michael Grove off of him. I think he has deserved the right to stay at the major league level. By the way, if Yanni Hernandez would have fielded a double play ball against the Angels right before Shohei Ohtani hit the 2-run home run on Michael Grove, Grove's ERA would be barely over 2, and it starts in July. So he's been good. So, hey, does he earn the right to stay on the major league club all year?
100%. I think you've seen with the ability, I think you saw in the series against Blue Jays, this is ability to get some really good major league hitters out. His role might change depending on what the Dodgers do, whether they look to acquire some starting pitchers, but he has pitched and earned the rights to be on this major league team, to pitch to earn the right to be on the Dodgers either rotation, either bullpen. I think they could really utilize him and try to find a way in order for him to be as successful as possible. And I think you mentioned a really good point. A lot of these younger guys are likely going to be on innings limit at some point in the future. I know Bobby Miller kind of had a start to the season delayed by injuries, so he might not be as much as a guy like a Emmett Sheehan, but there will be some point where the Dodgers start limiting these guys' innings. So if the Dodgers do look to acquire more than, say, a number 1 starter, let's say that they look for an additional starter as well, I think that could be very well could be a reason why, is because a lot of these pitchers are going to be dealing with pitching limits as far as how many pitchers they're going to have, in which case a guy like Michael Grove could very well fill that shoe, because he has proven at the major league level over the course of the past month or so that he's been able to adapt and get major league hitters out.
Out of the cutter. Hey, here's an interesting question. Would you trade any of your major league ready prospects? Like, I don't know if they're considered prospects anymore, but any of the major league ready guys that teams would target, like Emmett Sheehan, Michael Grove, Ryan Pepio, Would you trade any of them?
It depends on what I'm getting back. I think that
What would it
ultimately
take?
it would that's a really good question. If you're looking for a top line starting pitcher and you're told that a couple of these guys could get the deal done and that they're not looking for anybody else in the lower levels of the minor leagues, they're looking for some of these guys, and you have to sacrifice perhaps some of that starting rotation depth in order to get in number one. I think you have to very strongly consider that.
Yep, no doubt about it. Again, I'm going to say it. I'm going to keep saying it. Overpay. Do what you have to do to get a number one, because this is an offense and a defense. Okay, the Dodgers defense has been very good this year. It's the best offense in the National League. Now, I understand it's up and down, and it has hot and colds. It has hot and cold times, but hey, we follow the Dodgers, so we know the Dodgers' ups and downs. I promise you, if you follow the Braves or even the Astros or any of those other teams, you'd see their ups and downs too. We just don't see them because we don't follow them, right? So the Dodgers have a championship caliber offense. They have a championship caliber defense. I think they have enough in their bullpen to win a championship. They don't have a championship top of their rotation. I think hey, if you move Urias down to a 2, Gonsolin down to a 4 because Clayton Kershaw is your 3, and Gonsolin is not necessarily winning a game that has a whole lot of high leverage on it, I think you're okay in that scenario. And then you have Bobby Miller trying to have your cake and eat it too, So I think if you do that, you're okay. The only part of this team right now that is not world championship caliber is the top of the rotation.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. And I think that everybody knows that is the biggest need for the Dodgers. That is what they need and what they are going to try to get. Question will be, is there that guy out there? And the reality is Dodgers are going to have to overpay for this guy. Whoever that is, whoever they pinpoint as the guy they want to lead. Who do you think
it's most likely to be?
If I had to guess, a good guess would be somebody from the Chicago rotation, whether you're talking about a Dylan Cease, whether you're talking about a lucasgiolito, whether you're talking about potentially maybe not an ace, but another guy for the starting pitching in Lance Lynn. That very well would be probably the most likely, at least from what my guess is, as far as who the Dodgers would try to get. Seems to be kind of where a lot of the smoke seems to be with this. But it very well is likely that they could be looking at somebody completely else that they have ID'd as the guy to help lead, and we just don't know who that is yet.
Yep, and also Ryan Pepio could come in and change all of those dynamics. I got to see him with my own eyes the other day. He did give up a couple of home runs. He gave up 4 runs, but hey, averaged 95 miles an hour. He was throwing strikes with 3 different pitches. He was pitching backwards. He got ambushed a couple times, and you know as well as I do because you see it too, Austin, but on rehab assignments, a lot of times guys are working on pitch sequences, and they don't even really know who the hitter is that's at the plate, right? So they might actually be throwing into a hitter's strength, not even caring about that, because all they're worried about is a certain sequence that they're trying to refine in this rehab setting. So I don't ever look at results. I look at the stuff, how it played, and to me the other day, Ryan Pepio looked really good.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And a lot of those rehab starts, obviously, don't look at the exact results. Yeah. Look at some of the signs. They're obviously working on some stuff. We don't know exactly what the game plan is. Trust in the process.
Do you think Bobby Miller is going to get some time off? I'll answer that first. I think what they'll do, I mentioned it a minute ago, I don't think they'll actually give him starts off. I think what they would do is they would transition into a piggyback system. In other words, he would go 2, maybe 3 innings, and then he'd bring in a Michael Grove for the next 3 to 4 innings.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right with that. And that is something that we've actually seen. We saw that today with a guy like Ronan Kopp down in the minor leagues. He hasn't pitched a ton of innings. They don't let him go 5-6 innings. However, they keep him to shorter 3 to 4 innings, sometimes just 2 inning starts. I think as we get later in the season, as they want to save some of those innings that they have set aside for Bobby Miller for the postseason, I think you might start to see him pitch in games in like a 2 to 3, maybe 4 inning role just to save his arm, keep it as healthy as possible while also keeping him warm and on a consistent pattern before they let him loose. Maybe keep him on that similar role for the playoffs as we get closer towards the end of the season.
Yeah, Craig says anytime Will Smith is absent, the Dodgers lose. And I think the Dodgers actually are right around 500 with Austin Barnes in the lineup. But I get it. I mean, I don't disagree with what he's saying right there. The Dodgers, especially with this pitching staff the way it is right now, they have to put their lineups out there based on offense. Every lineup they put out there has to be offensively oriented because you never know what you're going to get from the starting rotation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's a huge hole in the lineup when Will Smith isn't in there. And I think the Dodgers offensively can feel that. And I think a lot of Dodgers fans notice that.
This is like the Pablo Sandoval for Eddie Rosario trade. And another thing, hey, the day game after the night game, that is most organizations would not catch a catcher, especially the game that went extra innings last night, then ask him to turn around and play a day game that next day in 95-degree heat. You know, you're going to wear a guy down pretty fast that way, so I think that played a role in that too. So it's hard to put a whole lot of blame as far as that situation goes. But again, it was a lineup that's obviously frustrating. I think I like it better than the Hernandez deal. So that transitions us. That is to Motley's comment. He always leaves great comments. The Kike Hernandez deal. If that's my dog right there, I apologize for that. So I may have to leave you. She may stop barking here in a minute, and she may not. I don't know. I may have to take.
Oh
care
no,
of her.
we have a new guest on Dodgers Dawgs.
Yeah, we sure do. We're making the name Dodgers. I'm going to let you take care of this for a second. I'm going to take care of her, and I will be back in just a second. So talk about the Kike Hernandez deal.
Yeah, no, so Kike Hernandez, obviously that is a big and familiar name for Dodgers fans because this is somebody who has been and was an important part to the Dodgers team before he left shortly after the 2020 season. And I think with this deal, obviously you're getting a guy who is very familiar to you, very familiar to the team. And I think with the subtraction of both Nickrobertson and Justinhagenman, I think you are losing some guys who are extremely talented, who have a really bright future, but I don't think the Dodgers are going to utilize both of those relievers. And so I think with Kike Hernandez, I think you're getting a guy who is very familiar to the Dodgers, who they know how he was successful, and I think they can help make him successful again. The question with this, and I think some of the debate that we have with Kike Hernandez, is he's obviously going to probably utilize the Johnny DeLuca type role on this roster. And so this goes back to the question that we kind of talked about previously with like the Jake Marisnick signing is, would you rather have Johnny DeLuca be a part in the major league roster, but only get maybe 10 plate appearances per week?
Yeah.
Or would you rather him be in Oklahoma City, continuing to develop more and get consistent everyday at bats? And so I think with Kike Hernandez, I think you are getting a guy, one, who I think is going to help the clubhouse a lot. I think he's a good clubhouse guy. I think you saw that with some of the video out today. I think you're getting a guy who, if anybody's going to turn him around, I think it's going to be the Dodgers because of their track record of success, and they know who he is. They know what has made him successful in the past. So I think with this, also, we didn't even mention the playoff success that he has had. And so if you're going to add a guy, if you're going to add talent to take over for the rookies, you want them to be successful in the playoffs. And he has more playoff experience than Johnny DeLuca. And so I think with all of these combined, I think it makes a little bit more sense as to why the Dodgers tried to acquire a Kike Hernandez, even though he has struggled this year.
Yeah, and I heard you mention this, but hey, if you follow Dodgers daily, if you listen to anything that we put out there, both Austin and I, you know the value that we think that Nickrobertson and both Justinhagenman have. Hageman, you know, he's been in AAA for over a year now, since the beginning of last year, basically got moved up in in April of 2022. and he's that three-quarter slot guy. His ERA is like 2.7 this year. He's been very, very effective. And Nick Robertson, I can just tell you, I've talked to Rob Hill, the minor league pitching coordinator, and he's talked to all the big Dodgers guys like Mookiebetts and Freddiefreeman, who've had to face him a lot in live BP settings. And they'll just point blank tell you he has some of the craziest stuff of anybody in the system with the way he's able to hide the ball. He did not get good runway with the Dodgers. He got inconsistent pitching time. He got put in bad situations, whether it be coming in, in the extra innings with a tie game and you can't give up the runner at second, or coming in with the bases loaded at Colorado, or having to wait 8 to 10 days to pitch, or coming in, in situations to where, just aren't with Jason Hayward playing first. He was always going to be giving kind of screwball type runway, if any runway at all, with the Dodgers. That became apparent. So good for Nick Robertson that he's getting moved to another organization that maybe has a little bit more playing time for him, because I promise you guys, whenever he gets runway at the major league level and he gets to have consistency as far as knowing when he's going to pitch, what his routine's going to be, he is going to be a good major league pitcher. And Justinhagenman as well, I just promise you he's going to stick at the major league level. Both these guys will be major league pitchers for multiple years. So the Red Sox got a lot of good return as far as what they got for Kike Hernandez, the type of player he's been for them. What the Dodgers got is they got a guy that the fans like, a guy who really hit, he hit that home run in 2020 in the World Series to tie the game when the Dodgers were losing. So they have a guy, like you said, that has proven that he can do it in big moments in the Dodgers uniform. So I think the two players win. I think both Nick and Justin, they win. I think Boston wins. I think it remains to be seen if the Dodgers win with it.
Yeah, the Dodgers are taking a little bit of a gamble just because Kike hasn't been successful this year. They are betting on their ability to help improve Kike through the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And they're betting on the fact that he can replicate what he has done in the past if they put him in an environment where he had been successful. So it will remain to see what happens. It's exciting. Obviously, there's a bit of nostalgia the Dodgers fans have for Kike Hernandez.
Yep.
We'll see if the production follows with the nostalgia, if it follows with the good production for Kike. And for Boston, they got a couple of tremendous talents. I think both you and I are happy for them, even though they're not part of the Dodgers system. They're going to get a better opportunity in Boston. They're going to get a chance to do it at the major league level. And so for that and with that, we're kind of happy for them, even though they're not in the Dodgers uniform.
I was communicating with Jacob Amaya's father, and then Jacob Amaya threw a couple of messages after Jacob got traded. My number one comment was, hey, go kill it with Miami. And we've seen with the Dodgers all the time that, hey, when you have a guy like Jacob Amaya, Nick Robertson, Kike Hernandez, that the organization loves, whenever you leave the organization, hey, you go out and you have success with another club, you're going to be the first guy they bring back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know it both kind of sucked when Maya left as well, but obviously we root for these guys even when they leave the system as well. I know another guy that we liked in the system that left for Detroit was a guy, Lyle Lockhart Jr., and he's actually been pitching really well for the Erie Seawolves in Double-A. So all these guys, if they're part of the Dodgers system, we're going to be rooting for you no matter where you go. And it's the exact same thing for Nick Robertson and Justinhagenman.
Yeah, Lockhart was getting that piggyback time, only getting about 3 or 4 innings per start, and there was just too many great arms in the system to get him enough pitching, enough mound time that he needed. So great to see that he went off to Erie. He's doing a great job over there. Actually had a chance to communicate with him just a couple weeks ago. His brother Kyle Lockhart's actually going to go to OU, so excited about that for him, and down there in Friendswood, Texas.
Boomer Sooner, right?
Yeah, Boomer Sooner, which obviously I'm an Oklahoma State Cowboy, but hey, state of Oklahoma, that's a good thing. So Lyle Lockhart Jr. is doing very, very good. I'm a little bit different on this next topic. You've heard me say this a couple of times. I would rather pay for a Shohei Ohtani for the rest of this season than overpay for the next 10 years. I don't want to get Shohei Ohtani in. I don't want him in free agency because I don't want the 10-year contract.
Yeah, no, this goes down to kind of what your philosophy is as far as free agents go. Do you want those top line free agents? If you do, right now you're going to have to sign these guys to extremely long-term deals. And especially with Shohei Ohtani, not only is he going to require a ton of financial, he's going to cost a lot of money, basically. Yeah. He's also going to require a lot of years. Yeah, is also going to take at least 10 years probably in order to get him, in which case that is a huge commitment and a huge risk towards the end of it. In the short term, obviously you're getting the best player in baseball. There's no doubt about that. With those long-term deals, however, it gets a little bit tricky towards the end. Now, Dodgers do have some of those longer-term deals. They obviously have mookiebetts. He's playing phenomenal for the Dodgers right now. You don't know how that's going to be towards the end just because of the player trajectory. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ohtani. And if you want to get Ohtani, you have to be willing to take the likely risk that towards the end of his career, he will not be the same player that he is today. And you will be probably unhappy with the production he has. I know that is something that I've seen in Detroit with a guy like Miguel Cabrera, who has really tailed off towards the end of his career. You've seen that with a lot of these big contract guys. So with free agency, there comes very serious risk, and there becomes, if you get a lot of too many of these guys, less flexibility as far as getting other talent. And so with this, I think this is one of the reasons we talked about previously about some of the rumors with Nolan Arenado coming to LA. If you want to get Shohei Ohtani, you have to deal with the reality that 4 guys are going to take up a large chunk of your payroll. So you're going to have to fill in those guys, maybe with some other rookie type Outman guys, with some other guys like that. And so with this, if you want to get a Shohei Ohtani, that's great. You're getting the best player of baseball. There are some sacrifices that you're going to have to make if you go ahead and get that deal.
Any chance the Dodgers would consider trading Tonygonsolin?
Right now, that is a good question. I don't know exactly how much. Let me go ahead and check to see.
Of course, if you did that right now without Clayton Kershaw, you'd have Juliourias as your starter, and then you'd have Bobby Miller, Emmett Sheehan, Michael Grove, and that would be your problem right now. So yes, I don't think. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but I don't think the Dodgers have even started to consider trading Tonygonsolin. I think that's a little bit out of the box. Not necessarily a bad idea, but I think it's out of the box at this moment.
And they still have him through 2026, meaning they have, after the season, 3 additional years of him on club control. And so I think with that, I think the combination of lack of depth that they have in the starting pitching and the fact that they have him for fairly cheap over the course of the next 3 seasons after this, I think it's very unlikely. It is an out-of-the-box idea if you get the right piece for him.
Yeah, but I'll play devil's advocate. That team control for not a big price tag, that's also what would make him very valuable in a trade market.
That's absolutely right. Which makes this really makes it a little bit interesting. So you either value these guys while you still have them, or you take advantage of the fact that they do have club control. So we'll have to see what happens.
That's a great idea, Michael. Great point. Great question. So, or just great point you wanted to make there. Pelicans hauls that were being mocked for Ohtani were kind of crazy. I think Angels fans would be disappointed either way. Whether they traded him or whether they keep him, he doesn't re-sign, and then they lose him. I think they would be disappointed either way. Hepatitis C says Gonsolin is a guaranteed loss in the playoffs. Dude does not come alive when it matters. I think a lot of that is his fastball is not electric, and he's relying on a very I don't want to call I don't want to call it gimmicky. That's the wrong word. It's very niche. That split change that he throws, if you have any kind of nerves, if you're in a big moment and your body doesn't feel exactly right, that split change is already hard enough to control. But if you add any extra elements to that, it makes it that much more difficult to control a pitch like a split change that he throws. And so I think he's actually onto something right there, that a split change type pitcher has the potential to struggle way more than a power pitcher that can just reach back and throw his four seam.
Yeah, really interesting point. Something that would be definitely worth investing in further research to see what sort of the data and what some of the history shows us with those specific type of pitchers in a playoff type environment.
Yep. Okay. We have a comment that Grove is improving. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Don't like Gratterall either. Can't seem to fool anybody. Gratterall, I talk about this seemingly on every single show. His ERA is below 2. His strikeout to walk. Now, he doesn't strike out a lot of guys, but he doesn't walk anybody. I mean, he does not give away any kind of freebies. So his strikeout to walk ratio is actually 3.5 to 1. His ERA is under 2, and his whip also is good too. So Brusdar Gratterall, in my opinion, I've defended him quite a bit. If you look at him by the numbers, hey, he's throwing 100 miles an hour. It looks like he should be striking more people out. And so that's kind of a weird dynamic to him. But by and large, Brusdar Gratterall has been just really, really good. And if you look at his numbers last year when he was healthy, he was the same way. His ERA was mid-1s. He had a good strikeout to walk ratio. So am I wrong here? Has he been a lot better than Dodgers fans give him credit for?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I mean, you talk about his ERA being really, really solid. Every single team would take that from a relief arm. And you just look at some of the StatCast data, too. Reason why he's been so effective is because people are not barreling up the baseball. He doesn't get a lot of swings and misses. He doesn't strike a lot of people out. But he's keeping the ball in the strike zone. And with that, when he is keeping in the strike zone, they're just not hitting it hard. If the teams aren't hitting it hard, if you're inducing a lot of weak contact, you're going to be very successful. And that has been what Brusdar Gratterall is. And so I think the Dodgers could really use a type of pitcher like that, which Brusdar Gratterall fits the role of, where you're going to get a guy who maybe isn't going to strike everybody out, but is reliable as far as inducing soft contact and getting outs too. He doesn't just have a low ERA. He has a whip of 1.13 as well. He'll give up some hits, but he won't give up a lot of walks, which I think Dodgers fans should be grateful for what he is able to do. I know with bullpen arms, every single time they give up any sort of base runner,
it sticks out.
It sticks out a little bit, right? I think if you look at the overall big picture of what he has been able to do, I think you have to be really encouraged by it, and you have to take each player and the strengths that they have for what they are, and I think Brusdar Gratterall's strengths are really, really positive for the Dodgers bullpen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And here's you kind of talk about like the Max Muncy deal, to where, hey, you can have one or two of those guys that are explosive but very inconsistent, right? And you got to surround them by guys like Freddie-Freeman that hit every single day. Okay, so if Brusdar Gratterall had guys around him that struck out a lot of guys, I think it would be a little bit better scenario for the Dodgers bullpen. But the Dodgers bullpen isn't relied upon this year of swing and miss. The one thing I do think the Dodgers could add to the bullpen is a guy that gets more strikeouts to help that scenario, to where you're not having to put pressure on your defense. You're making it easier on the game as far as getting swing and miss. And I think that one guy could be Ryan Pepiot. I think he could come in. He could max out his stuff. I think Grove could be that guy as well with that cutter and the slider that he's throwing. But I think Pepiot could come in and he could be throwing that 95, 96 with that really good changeup. He could make his stuff play up because he's only having to pitch 1, maybe 2 innings, and he could be the swing and miss guy that you need in your bullpen.
Yeah, I think you can utilize some of these guys who have been forced to stretch out and be starters, have to get innings. If you utilize their stuff just to get a lot of swings and misses, which is something that the Dodgers could utilize, and something that they very much value is the ability to get swings and misses. If we look at the minor league system, something they
Mm-hmm.
really do value. If you utilize the great stuff that both Michael Grove and a guy like Ryan Pepio has, I think they could get some of those swings and misses. Obviously, with this week being trade deadline week, some fans would be looking for trying to acquire some of those bullpen pieces from the outside. Very well could be what the Dodgers try to do to try to
Mm-hmm.
get a swing and miss guy from the bullpen from the outside. I would not doubt that they are looking and trying to find every single guy that they can that has that ability, and would not be surprised if they got somebody like that. But there are in-house options if they don't go down that route as well.
So kind of what I'm saying is that they do go outside of house and they go get a bullpen piece. I don't think it's necessarily going to be based off of ERA or numbers. It's going to be a guy that they think that can come in and get a whole bunch of swing and miss and 3 outs. I think they're going to be targeting a guy with that kind of stuff versus looking for a guy with numbers.
I think you're exactly right, and I think you're going to. It's possible that they're looking for a guy like a Ryan Brasher, who they've
Yeah.
identified that they can help and elevate their stuff, who might not cost as much prospect capital
Or
in order
anything.
to get, or maybe not much of anything at
Yeah.
all, but they can utilize his skills in the best way, and they believe that they can help fix him. And they also have the backup plan of in-house options if needed, if that plan doesn't work out.
I like the idea. This is Brendan. Brendan always has great thoughts. I like the idea of plundering the Cardinals for some combination of Arenado, Flaherty, Montgomery, and Hicks. I don't trust Giolito or Middleton. I like Cease, but maybe grab Luis Robert if he's available. Great.
Yeah, so
Those are some big time thoughts.
oh yeah, no, and Luis Robert, he would obviously be a huge name for the Dodgers to grab. Going to be extremely expensive to get a guy like him. Obviously, with a guy like Luis Robert, just trying to pick out some of the games that or parts of his game that might be of some concern. I don't believe that he walks a whole lot, and so you might be of some concern with that. Obviously, having a tremendous season, yeah, it doesn't walk a whole lot, strikes out a whole lot, but tremendous talent, having an incredibly successful season, would be a right-handed bat in the outfield that you could go get. But would be extremely expensive. So we'll have to see what the Dodgers decide to do over the course of the next couple of days with the outfield and with the starting pitching as far as who they've ID'd as players that they like.
Craig has a question. How about the Marlins pitcher they were after a year ago? That would be Sandy Alcantara. He said he can't remember his name, but that would be Sandy Alcantara. What do you think about him?
Yeah, so with him, I'd have to look up to see exactly what he's been doing, how he's been doing. So for the season, he has a 4.46 ERA, 124 WHIP. So he's been a little bit, I believe, abnormal as far as his ERA. In the past, we've seen him be in the 3 ERAs. We've seen him be in kind of the 2 ERAs with a lot of innings. We've seen this guy pitch a lot of innings in the past before. Could be potentially somebody that the Dodgers kind of look to, although I don't know exactly what the Miami Marlins plan is because they have a pretty solid baseball team this year. I know in the past they have been not as good. They've been a little bit more sellers. But with that, they could be looking to try to get some talent, perhaps on the offensive side, to help them. So it's totally an option that the Dodgers could try to look for. I just find it unlikely that the Marlins would try to trade him.
Hep says Dodgers will still have financial flexibility if they sign Shohei, Freddie, and Taylor on 5 and 4 year deals. Mookie is the only other long term.
Yeah, so with this, obviously, if you sign Shohei Ohtani, you're going to be paying well over probably $40 million per year for him. And so if we look at the Dodgers payroll, the 3 big names that they would have at that point would be Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani. So next year, Mookie would be paid about $30 million. Freddie would be paid $27, and Shohei would be paid well over $40 million. Let's just say, just to make it a little bit easier for us, let's say that's $100 million in cap space just for those guys. Probably gonna have to pay a little bit more for Shohei Ohtani next year, and that is without re-signing any one of Clayton Kershaw or juliourias, because
Urias
they'll
is
both
pretty
be
cheap right now, considering what the guy to replace him at the top of your rotation is going to be a lot more expensive than what he is right now.
But even still, he does have a track record of success. And so Julio Urias is still going to cost something if you want to bring him back.
Correct.
He's still going to be within, at the bare minimum, probably that $15 to $20 million per year range.
Which I was talking about what he's costing this year right now.
Yes. And with this, you also have a lot of guys coming off the payroll, a lot of depth coming off the payroll as well, that you are going to either have to re-sign or supplement with depth from the minor leagues and give them opportunities. And so it is totally true. They could make it work signing Shohei with Mookie and Freddie Freeman. They do have that ability with a lot of guys coming off the payroll. The issue is they have a lot of people to replace next year. Mm-hmm. And the question will be, will they be able to do that? Will they be able to replicate and replace the depth while also signing a Shohei Ohtani?
Will they? You think they'll exercise their option for Max Muncy? How much will that option be? Do we know?
I will look in just a second. So that would be a $10 million club option. I would have to assume that they probably would pick that up.
That'll be an interesting. And they didn't pick up 16 for JT. Did they pick? Of course, that 10 is exactly what they wanted to give JT. So is Max Muncy worth the same 10 that they were wanting to offer Turner?
I would say that if I had to guess, it would probably be yes, only because if you look at it, Max Muncy is significantly younger than a guy like a JT at this time last season. And
does that matter on a one-year contract, though?
On a one-year contract, not necessarily. But again, when you're signing players, when you are trading for players, it is not about what you've done in the past. It is about projecting what they're going to do in the future. And when the guy's a little bit older, your projection of what they're going to be in the future is a little bit diminished than a guy who's in maybe his mid-30s. And so I think with Max Muncy, I think you could expect relatively similar numbers around next year to what he's had this year, as opposed to a guy like Justin Turner, who he's getting into his later 30s. You don't know when that drop-off in production is going to be. Obviously, this year, I believe he's having a pretty good season over in Boston. And so with that, could definitely utilize that. But also has been very limited as far as his defensive abilities as well. Mm-hmm. So I would have to assume $10 million seems reasonable for a Max Muncy, who is still putting up above average offensive numbers. And if we look at FanGraphs, just looking at just kind of the overall statistic of WAR, he's still putting up a 2 WAR season so far this season, which is really solid. So I would have to imagine they probably pick up that option next year.
Yeah, the thing about that is just go ahead and do some research on the offensive statistic leaders from last year and check how many of them were over the age of 33. Basically one, and that was, how old is Freddie Freeman?
Freddie Freeman, if you look at Freddie Freeman, he is 33, almost 34, looks like.
Yeah. So there's not very many guys, about the age 32, 33 is where it really starts, the returns start really diminishing. If you just go look at the statistics leaders, at least in the recent past. Okay, so getting back into some of our comments, Pelicans, who always leaves great comments. I think Shohei worth it after a year of JD. That proves that a legit DH works. Plus, you get a frontline starter, 6-man rotation, though not sure about that.
Yeah, I think with that, obviously Shohei Ohtani would be amazing on the Dodgers. And I think you're perfectly right with that. And JD has shown that getting a guy who is a designated hitter, getting a guy who is productive in the lineup every single day can help elevate this offense, which certainly JD Martinez has this year. And next year, JD Martinez will be a free agent. I don't believe that they would move in that direction, at least initially in the offseason, continuing with JD. He's getting up there in age as well. So you have that spot open for a Shohei Ohtani type player to fill. And obviously, they could utilize Shohei in the starting rotation next year with some of the guys coming off the books, with some of the needs that are apparent in the rotation. I think it fundamentally just comes down to the cost and the length to get a Shohei Ohtani, and if the Dodgers are willing to pay the cost and take on the length of contract. If you're willing to do that, I think there's no team in baseball that has a better chance of signing Shohei Ohtani than the Dodgers, because they will have the motivation to do it and they have the financial resources to do it.
Well, here's the thing. The Dodgers are going to have to go in the offseason and get a number one starter. Would you agree with that? I mean, I don't think there's any way around that, whether it be re-sign Julio Urias. If you consider him to be a number one starter, which he was last year, not pitching like it this year, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you're going to go get a number one starter, what kind of contract are you going to have to sign anyways?
You're going to have to sign a pretty big contract, no matter who it is, yes.
So, you know, hey, if you're going to have to sign 6-7 years for anybody else, why not 10? I understand all that aspects of it. It'll just be interesting in the offseason that just the long-term contracts. They really, of course, you know, one or two of them on your team, okay, but man, it's just the Dodgers have so many resources and so much money. They have such great brains in the front office with the flexibility. That flexibility is what makes the Dodgers great year in and year out, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is true. But then you can also use the argument that they're able to find guys on super cheap term deals and turn them around to be amazing. To be amazing. A guy like Jason Hayward this year, they were able to utilize him and not really pay much of anything and turn him into a productive player in the role that he has filled. You could argue that they have a logjam in the minor leagues. Why not spend next year, sign Shohei Ohtani, and bring up a lot of guys from the farm system, have them get their 300, 400 plate appearances, and be productive in that role. You could definitely make arguments, and you could definitely make it work. The question is, will this work for the long term, contract that Shohei Ohtani will require?
See, this is why Dodgers fans who want guys like Ohtani, they want guys like Mookie Betts, they also need to really root for Miguel Vargas. They need to root for James Outman. They need to root for Julio Urias whenever he was younger. They need to root for Michaelbusch to be up at the major leagues. They need to root for Emmett Sheehan. They need to root for Bobby Miller to be a true number one type of ace guy, because you have so much team control for those guys. They're going to be so underpaid for such a long period of time. That opens up the flexibility to have a guy like Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, and I think with that, we've seen the talent in the Dodgers system. We just need to see them get their opportunities to show what they can do, to get their plate appearances, to get their innings at the big league level. I think if you go ahead and utilize the option of signing a Shohei Ohtani, that would give the Dodgers the ability to give them the opportunities that these rookies need. And so if you want Shohei Ohtani to be a Los Angeles Dodger, you have to root for these guys. You have to be encouraging these guys. You have to want these guys to be successful, because that's
willing to give them runway.
Yes, because that's the only way that this is going to work, and you have the depth necessary to continue to succeed and win in the future. If you're not going to sign a bunch of free agents, a bunch of veterans to help utilize and fit this role, if you sign Shohei Ohtani, you likely won't have that flexibility to do that. I know everybody wants to spend like the Mets. However, the better and more
Padres
trustworthy way to go is to have that talent come up and have flexibility from the minor league system, continue to develop and grow these guys, have them while they are younger in their careers, while they're still productive, they can help grow, and while they're cheaper as well, combine that with the free agency, combine that with the acquisition of talent from veterans. I think that is the best course of action. So it will really depend on what the Dodgers want to do and their evaluation of depth that they have in the system as to whether or not they want to go and get a Shohei Ohtani.
Totally agree with Pelicans. He says going to have to trade Busch if they're not going to use him. Play him or trade him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
no doubt.
And yeah, no, that is
he's almost 26, so he's getting ready to start losing value, right?
That is very true. And you got to be wondering, and there's this another aspect similar to what we talked about right here. Are they saving Michaelbusch and planning on giving him those at-bats next year? If they do sign like a Shohei Ohtani, if they have no plan for him next year, they have to trade him during the trade deadline or in the offseason because he's going to start losing value pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah, Tomatley's kind of echoing what we're saying. 8-9 years from now, Mookie and Ohtani taking $75 million on the cap. As late 30-year-olds, maybe it won't seem as bad in 2032 than it does today with inflation increasing Major League revenue. Devo, thank you for joining. Thank you for your comments. Time to give Knack a shot or two while there's a slot open. Yeah. Landon Knack, I think, would probably be the next guy. The next rookie.
I would definitely agree with that. And I'd love to see Landon Knack get that opportunity at the major league level if the opportunity arises for him.
Yep. Okay, so an underrated package I'd look at. This is from Trey. Great comment. Thank you, Trey, for joining. Probably not attainable, but Tariq Skubal and Alex Lang, Eduardo Rodriguez from the Tigers would do us wonders. You probably know a lot about this, Austin. You're in the Michigan area.
Yes, I am. Yeah, and I watch a lot of Tigers baseball as well. Yeah, Tariq Skubal, left-handed pitcher. He has been dealing with a lot of injuries lately. That's been a theme with a lot of the Tigers pitchers. He's one of those young guys that came up with a guy like Casey Mize, with the guys like Matt Menning. It was supposed to be this three-headed monster for the Tigers rotation. Mm-hmm. However, with injuries and stuff, that's kind of fallen apart. But Tariq Skubal is one of the most underrated and underappreciated guys nationally as far as a left-handed pitcher. He has incredible talent, big high-end velocity, can get a lot of swings and misses, came from 9th round. I don't believe the Tigers would be in the mood to move a guy like him, although if you're looking for a guy that you've identified, if you're willing to overpay for a starter, he very well could be in the conversations, especially with the lack of depth that the Dodgers have as far as left-handed pitching past this season. We know all of the left-handed starters are down in Great Lakes right now. That would be a very interesting and compelling case to go after a guy like him. For the other guys, Eduardo Rodriguez, he likely is going to opt out of his contract after this season, but when he has been healthy, he has been really consistent. Left-handed starter, has experience in the postseason as well. Could be somebody the Dodgers try to get. Then Alex Lang out of the bullpen has electric stuff. That curveball is really, really electric. Big swing and miss on that pitch, so he could be a closer, back end of the reliever, swing and miss type option that the Dodgers could target. Tigers likely are going to be looking to see what sort of offensive return that they can get. They're going to be looking for just some more talent to add to some of the young guys that they have. I don't believe that they would trade a Tariq Skubal, but if the Dodgers are looking for controllable guys and they're willing to overpay, perhaps he is a guy that they target, even though he doesn't have any sort of playoff postseason experience.
Good evening, Mike. Thank you for joining very much. I don't know why you didn't get a notification. I don't know. I usually whenever I set those up and I click set up the stream, it sends out the notification there. So we'll have to check on that. So thank you very, very, very much for joining. I'm not sure exactly who Michael's talking about when he says that he could close games if he didn't stay a starter. He may have been talking about Ohtani. I don't think he is there, but he also says there's value in him still being a reliever. And then Hep says, what would be a better investment in a long-term deal, Shohei or Soto? I think Soto, because he is younger and doesn't pitch, so less wear and tear.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a hot take right now. Obviously, Juan Soto is
Hey, the Dodgers daily crowd, man. I say it every time. It's the best baseball crowd out there.
I know, and that's a really good point and really interesting concept to go over, because obviously the offensive upside that Juan Soto has is one of the best in baseball. I know we're talking about a Padre right now, but you have to appreciate the upside that some of these players have. He is a tremendous talent, and he is incredibly young for where he is right now. So he's going to get a massive deal because he has some of those peripheral numbers. He has the ability to get on base. He has the ability to hit for average, hit for power, just be an overall offensive force. Now, Shohei Ohtani can do that and also pitch as well. And so I think right now, if you're looking for kind of the short-term deal, I think Shohei Ohtani obviously would be the guy that you would want, just because he can utilize both at an elite level. The question will be, and this is something that I don't think anybody knows, how long can Shohei Ohtani do this?
Yeah,
I know. And you don't know exactly how long he's going to do both. When might come a point where he has to switch to just one, or if his production starts tailing off at one of those. I don't know how long this is going to last for Shohei Ohtani. And so if you want to bet on consistency on the offensive side, perhaps you might value a Juan Soto over a Shohei Ohtani, and also because of the age difference as well. I don't know exactly how old Shohei is in comparison to Juan Soto. That really does bring up an interesting question, because Shohei will be on the market this offseason, and then Juan Soto the offseason following that. So it will be interesting because those two guys are incredibly talented. They're going to get massive, massive deals that we can't even comprehend the financial money that they're going to be getting and the length that they're going to get. We'll have to see who decides and who values each one of those talents, because I can tell you this, nobody's getting both of those players.
Yeah, but Shohei's 29 and Juan Soto 24, so that's 5 years right there.
That is a huge difference.
So if you gave Soto 10 years, you're looking at 35, which he's liable to be productive all the way through that. If you give Shohei Ohtani 10 years, you're talking about him being 40 years old, which means more than likely for the last 5 years of that contract, you're not getting anywhere as close to what you're paying for that.
Yes, that for a normal player, that is correct. The question is Shohei Ohtani even a normal player? Because this is something unique and something we have never seen before. And so I think if you're looking for a more sure bet, I think you would bet on a Juan Soto. I think if you're looking for more upside, I think you would bet on a Shohei Ohtani.
Okay, with the Hernandez deal, this is from the Domino. I know that you'd like to say hi to the Domino tonight, Austin, with the Hernandez.
Hi to the Domino.
Yeah, deal. And today's Rosario trade, who do you think the Dodgers will try to go after, assuming they're not done after this? We've talked about that. Who are the number one targets you think they'll get? I think let's not say necessarily names. I think definitely starting pitching and at the very front of the rotation.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think from now on, it's going to be pitching, and probably some more pitching that they're going to be looking at.
Yeah, and the Domino says, say what you want about him as a player, but Brusdar Graterol is a fantastic baseball name. The decade's lastings millage. Yeah, this decade's lastings millage. Soto, a beast, even though he's on the Madres team. Yeah, no doubt about it. Pelicans agree Soto, better investment by far. He is pretty brutal in the I can't exactly say what that, but better investment by far. Hep says, I just don't want Graterol in the playoffs unless the Dodgers are desperate for double play. But Dave has tendencies to put him to face the heart of the other team's order. Also, Hep says Soto as the long-term everyday DH would help preserve him, making the contract even better. Hey, that's a great point. Soto can DH, and boy, you're getting you're talking about a guy who would only be 35 at the end of a 10-year deal, and you can DH him. Great point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you want value in the field if Soto can provide that. However, I don't think he's the greatest defender in the world. So I think you probably want to utilize him in the outfield at least part-time, just to open up the flexibility that you have with the designated hitter. But I think long-term, you're looking at a guy who's going to be a phenomenal hitter at the designated hitter, and could be a generational hitter for the next decade or so. That is the level of talent that Juan Soto has.
Yeah, Frankie is onto a great point about Gratterall. The reason why he throws 100 but he's still so hittable is because he doesn't have good extension at all, meaning he doesn't get down the mound. So he's releasing the ball further away from home plate than most major leaguers do. So let's say you throw 95, but yet you're 5 inches closer to home plate when you release it. Well, that's going to have a perceived velocity to the hitter being way higher than a guy that is throwing 5 miles an hour faster out of the hand, because the gun is right out of the hand. So even if it's coming out of your hand 5 miles an hour faster, if it's say 3 or 4 or 5 inches behind another guy, that ball is going to decelerate and it's going to look slower to a hitter, although on the radar gun it's going to look faster. That's called extension, perceived velocity. Brusdar Gratterall, his perceived velocity, his extension is not good at all. That's why he does not get very much swing and miss. Maybe you swap Gratterall for Middleton or Gratterall for Hicks straight up, someone who gets more Ks. Mike says, I don't understand this mentality of getting pitchers to fix. We have good pitchers who need experience and don't cost anything in the organization. Gusvarland, he is just absent. Of course, you saw Tyson Miller come up today, give up a couple runs. Gusvarland, Mark Washington, we've already talked about Landon Knack, nickfrasso. Lots of big power arms in the system right now.
Yeah, really good point right there. You have a lot of guys in the system, a lot of guys who need to be utilized in some sort of capacity or have the talent to be utilized. So you don't necessarily need to always look outside the system, outside the organization, for needs that you already have in the system at the minor league levels, at the Oklahoma City. You can use a lot of these guys. You can call them up and utilize them and help improve them, get them some innings to work with at the major league level. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be try to look for those guys to fix. I know that is something that the Dodgers really do value and really look to do, because that is attractive for free agents as well, to try to help grow and improve them. But you also want to keep in mind the guys within the system as well, the talent that you have at the minor league levels that you can grow up and utilize in that exact same role to the same degree.
Is Hicks going to sign an extension with St. Louis?
That's kind of the rumor right now, is he's working on trying to sign an extension. If not, they're going to trade him more than likely.
Yep.
So we will find out within the course of the next couple of days, depending on if he gets traded or not.
Yeah, Frankie says actually it was Pablo Lopez that the Dodgers were after. So can you talk about him?
Pablo Lopez.
He was traded to the Twins.
He was traded, yeah. So he was traded to the Twins during this offseason for the Luis Arias. In that trade, basically, I don't think it was a 1-to-1 swap, but it was those were the two big components of that deal. And Pablo Lopez, even though we kind of hear a lot about Luis Arias being a guy, we've heard a lot about his chase for going after and trying to hit 400. He's been one of those guys who's had a really high batting average. Pablo Lopez has been extremely solid for the Minnesota Twins. You look at his StatCast page, just all red on the StatCast page. Just been a really good, really reliable starter. His ERA is a little bit higher than what it's expected to be, meaning he's pitching better even than what the numbers are showing. Twins are obviously going to keep him. They are likely, or they're right at the top in the American League Central. but he is still a really solid pitcher. I don't know exactly how long he has left with Minnesota, but he could potentially be a free agent at some point in the future. No, he's going to be with Minnesota for a long time to come. So likely somebody that the Dodgers probably won't be able to get, but somebody that they saw talent in last offseason.
Are the Dodgers, are they on the hook? We know they're on the hook as far as the salary cap, not the salary cap, but the luxury tax. I'm
Yes.
having a blank with the actual name for that. Okay, so we know where they're on the hook for it this year. Are they on the hook for it next year too?
Next year, I don't believe so. Not at this point. So obviously this year, I think they were kind of looking to. I think they were kind of hoping to get under that threshold. Obviously, with situations outside of their control, they ended up going just a little bit over the luxury tax threshold. Next year, it's a little bit tough to tell because they have so many guys coming off the books to free agency. So I think they will start off at a point where they'll be under the tax. It will just depend on who they target and who they get as far as whether they'll be under or over the luxury tax.
The Muncy contract, Hep says, is a bargain. Ton of slug if they want to clear salary. Teams would want Muncy at that price, no doubt. Could get a good stuff, and a trade. Muncy at first base also has defensive value. Second less, third not so much. Craig says Muncy's better as a DH. And then Hep says the thing with Shohei is he goes to the Hall of Fame with the Dodgers jersey. If you win once, even if the Dodgers and Shohei suck in year 8 of that deal, it is worth it. So that's definitely how a lot of people will view that, no doubt. Okay, so the Dodgers have to do it. Plus, let's see. Plus, you don't lock up the DH position for 10 years. Having the DH role flexible allows getting Smith more at bats as well. That's a good point. Moving Will Smith, he's not going to be a catcher forever. Maybe third base, a little bit of DH. Soto, 24 years old. We talked about that. Craig, Julio should be traded because of Boris. Yeah, Boris is very difficult to work with. The Dodgers, we've seen that with the Dodgers in the past. Even before Sasaki, lots of Nippon pitching talent posting this year. Anyone known anything about Nippon? I don't. We'll research a little bit more about that. Talk about that next time. Okay, and then the Corey Seager guy on the Rangers is pretty good. And so Gusvarland, pretty great. We talked about him. Okay, so I think we're getting down to the end here. So, Austin, any final thoughts? We had the Kike Hernandez trade. We've had a lot of action. The Amedrosario trade. We had the great night last night. The Dodgers are in first place. Kind of a dud of a game today. So, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, a little bit of a dud of the game today. But it is an exciting time of the season, and we saw the Dodgers trade to get a couple of pieces that they are going to utilize in the playoffs. And so I think with this, I think they're showing at this point they are going in for the season. They're acquiring guys who they want to be in the playoffs, who they want to be on their playoff roster. And I think they've identified a lot of veteran talent, a lot of guys who can hit against left-handed pitching. And they haven't acquired pitching yet, but I think with the trades, I think the Dodgers are just getting started. I think this week is going to be a busy week. I think they are going to get some sort of help for the rotation because I don't think they can win a World Series without it.
I would totally agree with that. So, hey, great show tonight. The next time I will talk to you, Austin, will be Monday morning. We're going to actually move our mailbags to Monday mornings. We're going to have Monday morning mailbags. We're going to combine that mailbag with all of the minor league action in the system over the weekend and just make that a Monday mailbag and then a good minor league show like we did this last Monday. So the next time I will speak with you. So, Austin, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me again, Casey.
Hey, great crowd out to everybody. We want to thank everybody for joining. Again, remember, every week, every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Pacific, that's 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. Those are all the times as far as LA plays. And then my time is Central, and then Austin's time is Eastern. So again, 6 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern, every Wednesday night. Dodgers Dawgs. Tell all your friends. Come back and join us next week. We'll have a ton to talk about. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a good week of Dodgers baseball. And a reminder, hey, guys, leave a comment, not just in the chat. Leave a comment also on this video itself and like the video itself. And that way, if you do that, it makes, in that algorithm, it makes YouTube think this is a video that's liked. It suggests it more and it gets it more views. So right now, if you don't mind, go over to this video and click the like button, leave a comment. And it doesn't matter if it's, hey, how are you doing? Just leave a comment. Let us know what you think about how we did tonight. Also, hey, we would really appreciate it. We do have a Dodgers Daily GoFundMe account. If you wouldn't mind, if you don't, if you like this kind of content, you'd like to see it grow in the future, hey, click that link and go to the Dodgers Daily GoFundMe account and think about maybe donating, even if it's just $1. Every little bit helps. Also, hey, like I said, leave a comment and like this video. So, hey, until next time, as always, I would like to say thank you for tuning in and go Dodgers.